Is your appetite suppression wearing off before your next shot day? If yes, this video is for you. Hey everybody, it's Allie. I'm on a fantabulous weight loss journey and hopefully you will subscribe and come along for the ride. So I saw a post today where somebody in one of the support groups indicated that their appetite suppression is completely wearing off by day 4. And so they want to start doing their injections every 4 days. And I thought initially that this was going to be, an educational moment, that people were going to chime in and say, hey, you really shouldn't do this. You need to talk to your doctor. By the way, talk to your doctor. And the people were going to explain how to deal with what to do when your appetite suppression wears off. That didn't happen. And it was really concerning to me to see how many people were just like, oh yeah, sure, go ahead and do that. Or, oh yeah, I do that and it's totally fine. So I want to talk about this and I want to give you guys some tips on what to do when your appetite suppression is wearing off before your next shot day. First things first, I want to say that I think that people playing around with dosing, playing around with when they take their medication, and making huge adjustments without talking to their doctor first is one of the main reasons why companies like Eli Lilly won't release the vials in the US. And it's not just because of this specific instance, but many other things relating to that topic, right? There are people who are taking way more than they should be. There are people, that are doing a number of different activities, basically playing around with their health. And the reason why these medications are so heavily studied and they have to go through a process to be approved is that we have to make sure that they're safe, right? So if you're not going to do what's recommended, you need to be talking to your doctor and having them walk you through it and asking them these types of questions. Unfortunately, people don't do that. They go to a support group and they're like, hey, can I take my shot every 4 days because my suppression's wearing off? And then other people chime in and say, yeah, when in actuality, that's not a good idea. And I'm going to tell you why. So these medications have what's called a half-life. It means that from the time that you take one injection to the time that you take your next injection, your body is slowly using that medication, right? It doesn't just immediately hit your system and go to work. And I think that people are confused by this because they think, oh, it's an injection, it's going straight into my body, and then my body's using it. When in actuality, it's a subcutaneous injection, preferably into a fatty area, and your body is slowly using it over the course of the week. Now, because of that, and especially if you stay on any one dosage for any length of time more than 4 weeks, it is likely that your appetite suppression is going to taper off sooner and sooner before your next shot day. Now, that might be a good indication that it's time for you to go up in dose. If it's the day before or even 2 days before, then you may not need to go up in dose. You may need to up your protein. And if you haven't watched my video about how protein can affect your hunger, definitely go check that out, because I think that a lot of people are not eating enough protein. And it's actually tricking them into thinking that they need to go up in dose or that they're not able to finish out and make it to that next shot day because their appetite suppression has worn off. Now, in some cases, it has worn off. right? Every person is an individual. So you're going to have to gauge that for yourself. But just assuming that because by day 4, your appetite suppression has worn off, therefore you need to take your shot earlier, is not a good idea. Because the medication is still in your system. So essentially what you're doing is not only using up your medication faster than you would be able to get a refill, right? And for many insurance companies, they are sticklers about being able to do a medication refill at a certain time for this exact reason. But you're also not doing yourself any favors because, like I said, the medication is still in your system. So essentially what you're doing, if you take an injection every 4 days of a full and complete dose, let's say it's 2.5. So you take your injection 2.5, 4 days later, an amount of medication is still in your system. It could be variable. Then you're doing another 2.5. So now the amount of medication in your system is actually higher than 2.5, but not quite to 5, right? Because some of the medication has been used up in your system. So then you're going from a lower dose to then going to a higher in-between dose, right? To get that appetite suppression back. And then you're coming back down as your body's using it again. And then you're coming back in and putting in a higher dose. And then what people end up doing is they do this for a length of time, thinking that they're circumventing the half-life of the medication, and then they go up in dose. And because they've been on kind of this high-low, 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 when they go up in dose, they don't get the same results that they would have potentially gotten if they had just gone up in dose. And remember, these dosages have been researched, right? They didn't just pick numbers out of the blue. They weren't just like, hey, let's start people on 2.5 and then let's double it and go to 5 and then let's double it again, right? There was a lot of research that went into this. So you're essentially changing your dosage in between. Now, people who are on compounds often do this when they have severe side effects. Hopefully with the guidance of their doctor. But people who are just posting in a support group and getting a lot of positive reinforcement for just taking their health into their own hands is not a good idea. And it's actually going to make it more challenging for you, and you're likely going to be frustrated by the results. Because while this may work for some people for a short amount of time, eventually it's going to catch up with you because you're going to hit a dose where you don't have as much suppression. And this happens to many people at various doses. I see a lot of people talk about it on 7.5, on 10, on 12.5, and they become very frustrated because there's no appetite suppression, but the medication is still working. And you just have to work through it. And I know that a lot of people are under the impression that this is a magic shot, right? And there shouldn't be any work involved. You don't have to change your lifestyle. You could just lose weight. But there is work involved. And if you're not having severe side effects, right, that are affecting your daily life, that are causing a need for you to do microdosing or to adjust your dosing with the help of a doctor, then you really need to not be playing around with it. Now, the other side of this that I found was hugely helpful to me is around week 11 or 12 when I was on 2.5, because I stayed on 2.5 as long as it was working. Around week 11 or 12, I started to notice the appetite suppression was wearing off sooner and sooner and sooner with every single dose, until finally I was at a point where I had 3 to 4 days of zero appetite suppression. And being able to work through those days, feeling that hunger, and implementing everything that I had learned previously about making healthy choices, portion control, increasing protein, all of these things, I put them to the test. And I continued to lose weight. And then once it got to the point where it was very challenging, I said, okay, told my doctor, we went over all the details, and she moved me up to the next dose. But you're not doing yourself a service by just saying, oh, I'm going to do my injection every 4 days because the appetite suppression wears off. If you are having the appetite suppression wear off, I really, really encourage you to try to work through those 1 to 2 days before the next shot, because if something was to happen, and I mention this often on my channel, and you don't have access to the medication, your insurance drops it, your insurance drops you because you keep trying to get refills early because you're doing shots every 4 days, and it compound, and it's become cost prohibitive and you can't afford it anymore, right? Things can happen. And if you go your entire journey without feeling any hunger because the appetite suppression is so strong, when you come off, it's going to feel like you've been hit with a Mack truck. And that's the way it felt for me once the appetite suppression started to wear off. And I was like, wow, I am like seriously hungry. And I'm not talking about normal, regular hunger cues. I'm talking about ravenously hungry, where you are like in a panic to consume food. It's very distressing. So being able to work through that for a day or two before your next injection, I feel is really, really important to both remind you of what hunger feels like, but also to put everything to the test that you have learned so far. Now, where people struggle is they haven't made any changes to their lifestyle. They haven't made any changes to their diet, trying to make healthy choices, increasing protein. They've simply just been eating smaller portions. So when that hunger comes back, they're in a panic and they don't know how to deal with it. Whereas if you stay on each dose until it stops working and you try to ride it out as long as you can, as those suppression days, right, start to move and get further and further away from your next shot day, the experience of going through that and everything that you learn about yourself is hugely beneficial. I cannot stress this enough. There are so many people, especially the ones that first started out on GLP-1s that are now in maintenance, that talk about, reaching their goal weight, getting into a maintenance mode, and they either come off the medications or they start to space out their shots and they panic because they don't know how to deal with the hunger because they haven't experienced hunger for many, many months, right? Any time that they experienced any amount of, real serious hunger, they either took their shot early, went up in dose, right? So you need to be thinking about that and think about it like you're doing yourself a disservice. And I understand that a lot of people are in a serious calorie deficit, like way, way lower than they should be. And that can contribute to that extreme hunger. But as somebody who is in a healthy calorie deficit range, I can tell you that hunger is real, that hunger is serious, and you need to be prepared for how to deal with it. One of the examples that I gave in a previous video is that I eat an entire can of green beans as a snack. It's high volume, it's low calorie, it's very quick to make, and it's very easy to satisfy that extreme hunger that kind of comes on what seems like out of nowhere, while also not blowing out your calories for the day, or binge eating, or ordering fast food, right? Learning those types of workarounds is only going to benefit you in the long run. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't watched any of my other videos, definitely go check them out because I've got some pretty interesting stuff. I've done experiments on shot injection sites. I've got lots of tips and tricks to help you on your health journey. If you're looking for a positive-only support group, I've got you covered. The link is in the description box below. And as always, be kind, rewind.